number 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
I've received none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
It's on the Councillor Lewis. On the minutes.
I apologise. Correction. Councillor Lewis.
Okay, thank you. And item number 2, declarations of interest. Members, you know the form. Councillor Mrs Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got 2 declarations of interest to make this evening. The first is under Councillor Squire's motion, 8B, which is to do with the appeal that the Dartmoor National Park is putting forward. I'm employed by the Dartmoor Preservation Association, who are working to support the Dartmoor National Park Association in the appeal process, and probably sometime this week it will be announced that that they'll be leading on a crowdfunding effort for the National Park. I've taken advice from the clerk. I'm not involved at the DPA in any decision-making or policy-making matters. I work there in administration only, so I think it's probably okay for you to stay for the meeting, but I think you need to be aware of it. The second declaration of interest is when we get to DMNL minutes of the 23rd of January 23, there's a planning application by my son, 224365, and I just need to make you aware of that. I won't take part in any part of that debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, I have to declare an interest under item 8B as I run a business involved in camping and touring.
Thank you. Any more? Okay, then just simply to remind you, if you become aware of anything as we go through the agenda, please let us know when we get to that agenda item. So, item 3, minutes of the council meeting. To confirm the minutes of the meeting of Town Council on Tuesday the 3rd of January. Are you happy that it's an accurate representation of what took place? Thank you. The minutes have been moved. Are you all in favour? Yep, thank you very much. And are there any matters arising that are not otherwise covered in this evening's agenda? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Item 4, public representations and questions. I understand that none have been submitted. So we move into items requiring a decision. Item 5A, schedule of payments to consider and endorse the monthly accounts as at the 31st of December. Does anyone have any questions or comments they wish to make, please? None? So 5B, budget monitoring report to consider and endorse. Are there any questions or comments, please? No? So considered and endorsed. Item 6, Budget and Policy Committee. Councillor Harry Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to present the minutes in Budget and Policy held on 24th of January. 348, apologies for absence. 349, confirmation minutes. 350, declarations of interest. 351, Market Road, Riverbank. There are a series of recommendations. Mr. Mayor, do you want to take them on block, or would you like me to go through them individually?
I'd like you to go through them individually, please.
Okay. The recommendation is that Tavistock Town Council endorse and approve the recommendations as included at paragraph 2.1 of the report, as follows. Current project A. The Council proceed with the tender exercise previously authorised, and in so doing formulate the tender documentation so as to be able to 1. Disaggregate essential safety works to underpin the riverbank fields scoured areas from any non-essential or non-safety work. 2. Clearly identify whether tenderers are supported by DEFRA, commercial group, requirement where grant aid is available. Agree that if additional funding, see below, is not available, the additional priorities shall be set out or shall be as set out in paragraph V of the appendix 3. I move those recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The recommendations have been moved. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. And does anyone wish to make any comments or ask any questions? Yeah, Councillor Mrs Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just noticed that this work around the flood modelling reminded me that I'd brought this issue to the council before around flooding. And what I wanted to request is that it was shared with the Neighbourhood Development Steering Group as well, if we do get that modelling, so that we can use it for the purposes of the steering group.
Okay. It will be added to item D there. Any other comments or questions? All in favour then, please show. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Recommendation B, the Town Council contact Devon County Council and South West Water, para C, Roman 5 of the appendix. That refers.
Thank you.
I move that resolution.
Okay, do we have a seconder, please? And all those in favour, please show.
Carried.
C, the Council requests the Environment Agency to explore the possibility of eligibility for support via 1, flood defence grant in aid, or 2, local levy. Para C 2 to 3 of the appendix refer. I move that recommendation.
Thank you. And again, do we have a seconder, please? And any questions or comments? Councillor Mrs Ewing.
I was just going to wonder, with the flood defence grants and aid or local levy, have we had any correspondence back from the flood defence grant, which will be the EA, which could be a bit pointless as we haven't agreed it yet. But I didn't know whether we'd sent the letter in advance for funding, and could we, have a date, that they come back to us, because we've got another project ongoing where nobody will talk to us. So I don't want to get into that situation again, because this wall is urgent. Thank you.
Town Clerk, please.
Excuse me. I think it's fair to say that the communications we've had with the Environment Agency suggest that flood defence grant and aid is unlikely to be available. It is principally targeted at designated flood defence assets, and the Market Road, Riverbank and Wall are not a designated flood defence asset. Therefore, it's fair to say that that is probably highly unlikely, but we do want to explore all avenues. The local levy is a possibility, but one should bear in mind that the local levy is, as it says on the tin, something which is sponsored from relevant authorities, and that's the Environment Agency, Devon County Council as the Highway Authority, and some other maritime and other public sector bodies. So again, we fall into the rather unusual situation where, in the main, typically what you would have would be either a registered flood defence asset, which gets picked up by one scheme, or you would be one of the subscribing bodies to the local levy. We're not a subscribing body to the local levy. It's not to say funding won't be available, but again, it's probably fair to say that we don't hit all the, or indeed most of the requirements in terms of that. But we're trying to explore those just to ensure we've exhausted all possibilities, and that very much then ties in with the element that we've got in there, which is about seeking to go to the Environment Agency and actually ask for inclusion in future flood relief schemes. So if we are found to be unable to draw down monies through these, clearly we have to deliver the project insofar as it relates to providing essential stabilisation works for the road. But that doesn't preclude us from actually asking for consideration to be given to Tavistock being included in a future flood defence scheme, and the likelihood of success of that is going to be fundamentally informed by the next recommendation, which is on the agenda here, which is in relation to the modelling which the Environment Agency are currently carrying out. Now, I've seen some of the preliminary findings of that shared on a screen, but they're not in a position yet to share that with us officially as an authority. And so, effectively, items D and E pull those components together to try and ensure that we have explored all the potential avenues for support, both now in relation to paragraph C and in the future in relation to paragraphs D and E.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, please? With Councillor Smith's permission, given that D and E have already been referred to by the clerk, would you be happy for us to take those together with C?
I think that's the way forward, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. In which, Councillor Mrs Mann?
I just want to raise this because it was raised by a West Devon Borough Council officer, which is that where we are doing a neighbourhood plan, if we are going to be having actions that need to arise from work of this nature and or things that need to be funded through grant funding, they need to be in the plan, even if they are just added as and when you've already done the work outside of the plan, in order that you can evidence that they are supported within that, so that you don't end up in a situation where your neighbourhood plan doesn't support it, which makes it more difficult to get the funding that would arise from it.
Yeah. The clerk will add that to item D. So, any further questions? All in favour then, please, of those recommendations?
Carried.
Councillor Smith.
352 Rural Services Network Survey. The recommendation: A. Tavistock Town Council respond to the survey to the effect that question 7 refers. Levelling up could most effectively and sustainably be achieved through the delivery of first the Tavistock to Plymouth railway link, followed by railway linkage to Oakhampton. That's recommendation A.
Thank you. A seconder for that one, please. Yeah, Mrs Johnson, thank you. And all in favour?
Carried.
Thank you.
And recommendation B, Mr Mayor, is in view of the critical importance of transport connectivity to the town and Town Council strategic plan, or to the Town Council strategic plan be amended to include under section 2.3 a new objective as follows. And it's EN8, transport connectivity. The Council will support initiatives which improve the critical connectivity of the town with other settlements and national transport infrastructure, with a particular focus on the reinstatement of the rail links to Plymouth and then to Exeter and beyond via the Oakhampton line. Move that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for those, please? Okay, thank you. Councillor Mrs Mann, does any of that have implications for the NDP?
Sorry, I did notice there was quite a few projects that were identified in this particular agenda that should probably also be forwarded to the NDP steering group to be added. We already had quite a lot of feedback, and actually the survey reflected the interest of the community in this one, so it's already been identified as a priority with the steering group. The only thing I wanted to ask on this one, though, in addition, is that I'm the person that has gotten the survey. Am I the one that is actioning this?
Essentially, this was placed on the agenda because you requested it be placed on the agenda. The committee considered that section 7 was the one, because most of the rest was around factual iteration. So if you wish to respond, or if you wish officers to respond, we can go either way. This just provides the response in relation to question 7.
Does that answer your question?
No, actually, that gave me an option.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harry Smith.
353, the wind map. The recommendation that the Council endorse a posting of the wind map on the website of the National Library of Scotland, subject to the applicable restricting the use to non-commercial purposes, the posting crediting Tavistock Town Council as outlined in the letter which was appended to the report, confirmation that the listing on the website can, if need be withdrawn at the request of the Council. I move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder for that, please? Anybody wish to say anything? All in favour, please show.
Carried.
354, which is within item circulated for information only. 354 is energy consumption. 355 is on-street parking. And it's noted that the town clerk undertook to bring a report, and this is item 8 on our agenda. 356, urgent business brought forward. A, the King's coronation, and B, prospective councillor event. And it's recommended that the council endorse the additional measures and associated approach as proposed. Move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Ewing.
I'd just like to give an update. The estimated to be in the region of 250 is actually 500 now. We found some more pennies.
Thank you. Anything else? In which case, all in favour, please show. Thank you.
Carried. Can I just give an update in relation to the configuration of the coronation event that we discussed?
If you just bear with us for a moment, Councillor Smith, please. The Mayor will give us the Mayor. I'm the Mayor, aren't I? Yes. The clerk will give us a little bit more information about where things have got to with potentially marking the coronation. Town Clerk.
Thank you. Yeah, just really for members' information, it does the report before you does refer to liaison with the bid department. We are bid company. There has been a meeting by the general manager with the bid manager. What we're anticipating at the moment is that there will be activity both on Bedford Square and in the Guildhall car park. The Guildhall car park will be let on a commercial basis, on a day's booking, and the Bedford Square is going to be, we would anticipate in the normal way, actually offering as an in-kind contribution to support the bid in terms of providing what its offer there, and it's going to be a market-themed event, but it will be taking place after the actual coronation has taken place, so it's going to be from 1 o'clock onwards rather than conflicting with the event itself, and that would be on the Saturday.
Councillor Mrs Ewing.
So, do I take it Tavistock Town Council aren't really doing very much? I wanted to say anything, but very much. And that we're not putting our hands in our pocket. You know, as in giving some money as opposed to free space if we're letting it, the area on a commercial basis. I don't really feel personally, and others may have their views, but I feel as Town Council we should be doing more to mark the coronation.
If I may, Mr Mayor, sorry, just to clarify, the activity which will take place on Guildhall car park is commercial activity by a commercial provider. It's not the bid company, it's a provider that the bid company has sourced, and that it will be known to you. And therefore, I think it's perfectly reasonable that that provider who is doing it for commercial reasons and for commercial benefit should actually meet that cost, because they will be recharging in terms of the stalls and the offer that they have there. In relation to the bid company, obviously we're providing that space. Don't forget, we'll be supporting the setup, the breakdown, as well as providing space free of charge and supporting the event with staffing resource. So it's not a case of not doing anything. With the King's coronation, it's very different to the Platinum Jubilee. The Platinum Jubilee, there was some very clear guidance from the Palace in terms of the kind of celebrations that were anticipated and which could appropriately be undertaken. Essentially, the coronation is a different style of event where essentially the Saturday is the coronation day, and nothing has been suggested in relation to that, and then the themes of volunteering and community have been identified on the other days. Clearly, if there are groups which represent those communities of interest on the other days and they wish to do something, we would very happily work with them in order to be able to achieve and to deliver that. But those are the themes, and it's very much less like the Platinum Jubilee, which had some very prescribed outputs around the Queen's Green canopy, around beacons, and around other activities. It was very clear what was wanted and what was expected there. I think this has been deliberately targeted as a lower key event, because of the passing of the Queen, obviously, and the timing in terms of where we are. The next beacon-style event, which we do know will be the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings, and that will be a beacon event, and we will be looking at doing something there. So here we are doing what is consistent with the guidance and consistent with those community groups who wish to engage with us. But as I say, for community and volunteering groups, very happy to engage with them if they have initiatives or proposals that they would wish to bring forward.
Okay.
Mr Mayor, that's the final item and it's part of the meeting.
Thank you very much indeed. That brings us on to item 7, Development Management and Licensing Committee. Councillor Mrs Mann, please.
Right. I rise to present the minutes from the Tuesday, 10th of January, Development Management and Licensing. Item 328, apologies for absence. 329, confirmation of minutes. 330, declarations of interest. 331, Dartmoor National Park Authority. 332, town planning issues. I just want to point out that we did have an issue that arose on that one, which was that I was going to write a letter, which is now in the next minutes, to the Airband Community Internet Limited, because we received their notification after they'd actually already done the installation of this pole. And doing research, it seems that they've done that before. So if you didn't receive that information from us in DML, they've done that in Totnes in 6 or 7 locations where they've put poles up without sort of prior notice to either the notification of the resident or the regulations. So we thought we would point that out to them, that they are actually still required to do that notice. 333, general correspondence. 334, neighbourhood development planning. 335, urgent business. 336, planning decisions. A, planning decisions, and B, new planning decisions with a recommendation that the views of the town council be passed to the local planning authority.
Okay, thank you. So we've had a recommendation that's been moved. We have the seconder. Thank you. And are all in favour?
Carried.
And 337 is the next meeting, which I will read now, which is Monday, the 23rd of January, 338, apologies for absence. 339, confirmation of minutes. 340, declarations of interest. 341, Dartmoor National Park Authority. 342, town planning issues. 343, general correspondence. 344, neighbourhood development planning. And I just point out that we have, I have handed out today to you a poster which looks like this, which is, I've handed out to everyone so that you can maybe put it somewhere that you can notify your own constituents about this meeting. This is meant to be a community conversation meeting, and I wanted to see if you could share that with as many people as possible so that we have a good conversation about what people want for the future of Tavistock and look through our visions and aims. That will also be placed around by us. So that's in the notes that were in that meeting. 345, urgent business brought forward. 346, planning decisions and applications. At A were the planning decisions that we've received, and B were new planning applications and the recommendations of the town council listed in that.
Okay, so the recommendation is moved, seconded. All in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you. Item 8, A, on-street parking charges, to consider the briefing note of the town clerk, which hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read. This item is open for debate. Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, this briefing note is interesting, but I think we need to be a little bit more proactive as a council. I think we need to be not just having little bits of paper like this, but we need to be putting motions together. We need to be joining with BID to basically get rid of this parking idea before it even starts. We haven't got a time scale. What we have got, I'm sure you've all read it, the 2 links that we've been given by Devon Council, have not really given us much information as to what they particularly want to do in Tavistock, and there isn't a really time scale. But it sounds as though they want to put parking meters in some form in Tavistock. We don't want them, and I think rather than wait to an undeterminate time till then they then put a proposal forward, let's make our voice heard straight away, like biddies, and say, actually, the way Tavi parking works, it works quite well with the up to an hour. The businesses like it, the locals like it. Actually, let's tell Devon Council we don't want it changing.
Thank you. Councillor Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree. I think as a council we should join the dots and state our case. I think it's unfortunate that we don't know what Devon County Council have in store, and we could wait and wait and wait. But we have been there before, about over 10 years ago, and the County Council decided not to install the meters. My concern is, as a ward councillor on both councils, to my knowledge, no councillors have been approached by Devon County and consulted on what our feelings are. We've also got the Town Council and the West Devon Borough Council are providers of parking, and as stakeholders in parking in Tavistock, we haven't been consulted either. BID hasn't been consulted, and the residents haven't been consulted. And also, as one of my pet projects is residents parking. Should a on-street pay and display be imposed upon us, there is likely to be a knock-on effect, a domino effect of drivers wishing to avoid parking charges and going up all the side streets. A lot around the town centre are residential. The only street in Tavistock that has the benefit of residents parking is Old Exeter Road, and they have some protection there, but all the other streets, we're even into a position now where people trying to avoid parking are parking up down the road. So that situation to me is going to be even potentially worse. So I think as a council, I don't know whether the Deputy Mayor has a motion sort of formulated, or whether we should formulate one tonight, or what the process. I've been guided on how we do that. But I think the Town Council should, it's clear to me, I've not spoken to one member of the public, no other councillors that I've spoken to are in favour. And I certainly have grave concerns for Tavistock. So I would support a motion that this council wishes to put together to state the case, and so that Devon County know what what our feelings are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Squire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My position on this has already been forwarded to the press, because they rang me up and asked me my view, and it's quite clear I'm totally opposed to the idea of parking meters in the town. It would be contrary to our heritage and to our existing structure, and produce a site which is not worth seeing at all. So I'm against it in that totality. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williamson.
As many members know, I'm the BID BOD nominee director, and I will end that position in May. This proposal, we are told, is being rolled out or for consultation after May. As preemptive action, the BID launched on Friday last week a GoFundMe petition, and I have made a personal donation to that against this proposal. I've also signed a petition along with 802, it was when I looked at 5:30, and then 806 people at 10 to 5 this evening. So the ball has been rolling on objecting to this, but of course we're completely sight unseen as to what Devon County Council proposed. The BID Board of Directors, BID Board as it's known, is meeting tonight over there, and I'm here. So I don't know what they're discussing tonight. So we've got going as a bid to object very vigorously to this, and the grounds are the harm it will do to the economic vitality of our town centre, the inconvenience it will cause to people who would otherwise pop in for a shop, etc., etc. And I think as a council we should engage with bid. It won't be me after May, and perhaps other members of council who are hoping to be re-elected should keep an eye on that particular ball in bids court in the meantime. But as I say, they haven't got going yet, Devon County Council, on what they really want to happen to our town centre.
Councillor Mrs Ewing.
I would like to add my support for being totally opposed to this ideal, and will say that I have signed a petition and I have also made a personal donation to the GoFundMe page. I understand from our county councillor, who is in the room at the moment, that some of the parking may not be right in the town centre. It may be towards the end of Plymouth Road. But having been a resident at Fitsford Cottages, where there's only 8 spaces for 18 houses, they use that end of Plymouth Road to be able to park, because we have no other parking at Fitsford. One of the drawbacks of living there in the beautiful cottages. But this parking issue is, personally, to my view, is just bonkers in a way, because people drive around the town now looking for a free space. Can you imagine if they're going everywhere else to look for a free space? And it is the parking that goes further and further back in town onto residential streets. People have been parking up at Down Road to avoid parking for years now. It's not a recent thing. People have been doing it for a long time. And it just gets worse and worse, because all you do is force people to go elsewhere. Because when you're coming to work every day and you're having to drive, if you've then got to pay, you know, for this parking that is going to be taken away from you and limited in some of its timings, so people can't park there all day. They've got a couple of hours, an hour, 2 hours, we don't know yet. But so a part-time person has got to go and find somewhere much further to park or to pay the costs of parking for the day. And I'm not sure if these meters, because we don't know yet, whether you can pay to park all day or whether it is only a limited time period. We don't know the answer to that question yet. So yes, I'm fully on the bandwagon for being opposed to it, but it's very difficult being opposed to something that you've not been consulted about. You don't know what the rules of the game are because nobody's told you yet. So as Councillor Williams said, it's how do you get involved when you don't know what you're getting involved with? And, you know, but the button might have been pressed to start, but you don't know that. The details online are sketchy, to say the least. We do know there's other towns affected by this, and I couldn't even recite them all properly the other day. The town clerk had to help me. But what is it? It's Braunton, Kingsbridge, Dartmouth, Sidmouth, Crediton, Oakhampton, Tavistock. For 8. Yeah. So they're the towns affected, and they're all in the same situation as us. They don't know what is actually being thought of. If a consultation paper had gone out and said, this is what we're planning in November, when we first heard about it, we could understand what's going on. You can work to a plan. And in the last time that Devon County tried to do this 10 years ago, we knew what the plan was. We knew exactly where they wanted to put things. We knew where the residents' permits could go, because it was Bannerwell Street and I think Chapel Street, if memory serves me correctly, that were looked at for residential parking. None of that is even in the, well, it might be in the ether on somebody's computer somewhere, but it's not where we can easily access the information. I should imagine Councillor John Hart on Thursday evening is going to probably be bombarded by residents from Oakhampton, you know, councillors from Oakhampton and Tavistock as to what is going on. You know, it's just not right that we don't quite know what we're up against. I mean, for example, there could be something marvellous in it and we all think, yeah, that's really good for the town, let's go with it. We don't know. So it's very difficult. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Just as a matter of just as a matter of practicality, if the council was unanimous in being against parking charges, on-street parking, and we want to go out on the front foot, couldn't we just write to the county council and just say, as a matter of principle, the council is against this, and then when further details emerge as to what they want to do, that we can then reply to that in kind with evidence when it comes out?
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mann.
I'm just going to add two more things to the list of litany. In the neighbourhood plan, one of the things that came up was street furniture and things that get in the way of the heritage environment that we have in the town. And I don't know if anybody's been to Plymouth City Centre and seen the machines. And they are spaced out, but they are quite ugly, very modern. They're very tall. They're actually, you know, taller than I am. They tend to make a problem for the pavement. And I actually had a really hard time imagining where you could put them in Tavistock because our pavements are so narrow anyway. So I was a little bit concerned about that. So I wanted to raise that as an issue. I do think that the recommendations in the report are really important. I do think we want to request that information because in order to formulate the best arguments against the parking, we need that information that's there. And then the second piece I wanted to mention was that the idea that Tavistock's underfunded bus services are the reasoning. You know, I have a son who travels every day by bus. I pay a lot of money, actually, privately, and that bus is completely full of students. And it's been a very difficult time. I know there was an article in the paper, I didn't do it as a councillor, but as a mother, where children were being left at school in Plymouth by the buses without any notification. I had to write to them and actually threaten to turn them into the regulation authority in order to even get a response from the bus companies. So I'm not, I just think we need to note that the bus services are not going to be able to replace the parking, and they aren't equivalent, and whatever underfunding is there, probably we should be figuring out some other solution to the bus services. And that is, you know, very upsetting to me that we're paying so much money for those services and they're still not good. And now we're going to be required to give up our high street as a result of that as well. So I just think we need to note that there's a lot of other pieces to this. And what I wouldn't want to do is to write a response too early that then can be ignored because it doesn't address all of the things that we should address in as complete a way as possible. So I think the recommendation in the report is really good so that we can actually prepare a response with as much good information as possible in order to address all of those issues. I think what the bid is doing is fantastic, and I support that as well.
Okay, thank you. Could I invite our county councillor to speak, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Basically, I'd just like to reassure you that when I was asked to, in November, I was asked by the cabinet member to find out from the town council where they would fancy having some on-street car parking. So I said, okay, right. And I wasn't told at the time that there was the issue with the buses. So I find that very frustrating, and I would like to reassure the council and residents that I have made my feelings quite strongly about how I feel this has been done in quite a impractical way. And as Councillor Ewings was just saying, had it been constructed in something where we were invited to just have a chat even, that would probably have been more palatable for us. So when I found out that time had not been factored into, by the officer, I hasten to add, or the officers, which one, that time hadn't been factored for negotiating or even having the courtesy, simple courtesy, to chat with democratically elected town and borough representatives and the BID, who are represented by the retailers. So I did make my case quite strongly. I didn't have to say much. They could see I was cross. And I remain emphatic that we need to have a roundtable discussion. So as a consequence, the officers have now gone back to reevaluate what they're going to do. Now, why the heck that wasn't done in the first place is beyond me, but I refuse point blank to make a unilateral and arbitrary decision. I was just not going to do that, because if we all remember when we did the Tavistock traffic management many years ago, when we culled the road signs, put up yellow lines and various places, yada-da-da-da. That was as a result of engaging with the community and with democratically elected members. And that is the way I work. So, whilst I'm on watch, I've got another couple of years at county. I just want to give you reassurance that I fully support having discussion. What does concern me is that the very few people that do use some of the subsidised buses are very vulnerable and need the buses. So clearly we need to put our thinking caps on how we, because it's being said that it's unfair that Tavistock and other areas are getting, I think it's in the tune of about £180,000 in subsidies that the Tavistock bus routes get. I've asked them, I want to, and I'm sure all members would want it, a list of which buses cost how much and what the usage is. I asked if the bus depot can be looked at by Andrea Davis, the Transport Cabinet member, because I firmly believe that this can't be done in isolation, and we have to look at perhaps, you don't quote me on this, but shuttle buses or anything. That the idea is to try and get people more people walking and using bikes and e-bikes. And I said, please look at the demographics of Tavistock. We've signed on for biodiversity and climate change, and that we're all actively trying to promote cleaner travel. So I would suggest, through you, Mr. Mayor, that the council is quite, you don't rush into we're absolutely against this, because there are always more issues, and I've said to the officers that I want the roundtable discussion so that we actually know what we're up against. So what I've suggested is that, it's up to you, not me, but just be careful that we don't lose buses or things like that. I don't know the details, and I was cross.
Thank you very much indeed.
I'm sorry, it's quite awful that I can't sort of share more information, but I've done a bit of desk pumping, as one might say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to reassure you.
Councillor Mrs Ewings.
It's a question for the County Councillor through you, Mr Mayor. The buses that we're talking about, are they the local shuttle buses that go around the town that we know are subsidised through Section 106 payments for the developments and are supposed to go to them? If that is the case, they need to look at the timings of these buses. I have been through timetables today, looking them up, and if you want children to be able to catch a bus to go to school, you shouldn't be starting the service at 9:23 in the morning. That is why those buses are underused, because their timing is between 9 o'clock and about 4 o'clock. They don't always stop near the school. So they're missing a complete cohort of, of the demographics for this area that would actually be paying to use the bus. If you live on the development going out on the Brent Hall Road, you don't want to be walking to school like a little drowned rat by the time you get there. But if the bus was up there at 8:15, 8 o'clock in the morning, people would use it. And then the bus service would have an income. And I don't understand why they don't do that. So is that, basically going back to my question, are they the 3 bus services that are in trouble?
I have absolutely no idea, and that is where another reason why I was cross, and why, if you, as I just said, I've asked for a list and for the numbers and the, let's do a bit of number crunching, because people who know me know that I do like to forensically scrutinise things when we have to do that. Councillor Moody, remember when we were on audit together? Yep. So that's, it's wrong that I don't know the information, and I just want to again reassure you that when I know stuff, I'll let you know. And I've said that they have to factor the time in, and as Chris was just saying that it's not going to happen till May anyway, or after, and not before we've had a discussion, because I'll still be on watch and I won't let them, because I'd still have to okay it, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Or,
Councillor Mrs Mann, I think you wanted to say something. Councillor Mrs Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd first of all like to thank the Town Clerk for this report. I think it's one of the best reports I've read for a long time. He's obviously worked very hard to find out all the great details. It's a shame that people at County Hall aren't working with such in so much detail. I agree with Councillor Mrs Mann in supporting the report recommendation. I'm very much against the proposal of parking meters in Tavistock. It's the most stupid thing I've ever heard of. I'd suggest that all councillors try and attend the virtual meeting with Councillor Hart, the leader of Devon County Council, on Thursday evening. There are details, I think, in Councillor Mrs Sellis's report, and they've also been emailed to members. To me, this seems like a cash generation project for Devon County Council. The businesses in this town have worked extremely hard to keep trading during very difficult circumstances, and they're going to be penalised for their hard work, because that seems to me so unfair. So thank you, Mr Mayor, for letting me speak, and I just think we ought to support these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sellis, and then Councillor Crawford.
thank you, Mr Mayor. No, the Councillor Johnson, I've been reassured that it's not to make profit. It's any money that is made would have to go into things like bus services. So yes, we are. The thing is, it's not that the coffers per se of Devon County Council would benefit, other than because we don't want any cuts. If you look at the projected shortfalls in the budget at Devon County, it's eye-watering. And there are a lot of people that don't quote me exactly on this, but it's something 3% of the population use 78% of the funds that are available for Devon County. So there's 3% very, very vulnerable people, and they need, some people require, I believe, £10,000 a week, and then with the grace of God go year and line. So I've been assured that it isn't to make money for Devon County's grandiose projects and everything, it's just the running costs and keeping people safe, looking after the most vulnerable.
Councillor Mrs Johnson, did you want to make a point directly related to what's just been said? Then please go ahead.
Thank you. If that's the case, then Councillor Mrs Sellis, I'd like full details of how that money is going to be not generated, but how it's going to be used here locally in Tavistock. If I can talk about something that I know a lot about and have worked very hard over the last 40 years, is youth work in Devon. And Tavistock seems to get a very short straw as far as that's concerned from Devon County Council, though I know they allocate space with a grant. All youth work provision is carried out in Oakhampton. Young people are supposed to go to Oakhampton from Tavistock. I think we get a very bad service there, and I've spoken to you about that before. So I think we need lots and lots of detail here about exactly what is happening. And I do think, I wasn't going to say this, but I do think Devon County Council could look a bit closer to home. They've got that grand county hall with all those lots of grass areas, panelled rooms. I think they could look a bit closer to home to save a few pennies up there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mrs Crawford, please.
That is being considered, I believe.
Thank you. I'm fully supportive of knowing the having a full understanding of what's being recommended, but I have to say I do agree with Councillor Sellis, which might be a surprise to some of you, that the buses could be at risk. I moved here from Plymouth 9 years ago when there was a 15-minute service into Plymouth with the number 1 bus. That bus now runs a 20-minute service, and contrary to what Councillor Mann was saying, is very rarely used throughout the day. I'm subsidised by Devon County Council under the government scheme, so I am able to get out and about. And if those buses are reduced or stopped because there isn't funding from Devon County Council, that will put a lot of vulnerable people at risk of isolation and not being able to get out and about. And I also agree in terms of environmental things, we need to be getting people onto buses. So I just do think that whilst we look at the parking restrictions that are being trying to be imposed, we also do have to balance that with the bus service if that's what's being recommended.
Just for clarification, if I've understood correctly, it's not parking restrictions that are being considered, it's charging for parking that's being considered. Councillor Moody.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I just address the elephant in the room, please? The reason why Devon County is in such a state and West Devon is in such a state, all councils in such a state, the central government austerity cuts. And I think that's where it all begins from. And here we are talking about bus timetables and things like that. Let's look at the real reason. And just as a final example, West Devon Borough Council over the last 10 years has lost £3 million in central government funding. Now, if you think of if that money was still available, how much more we, as West Devon, and also if Devon County were funded, how much we wouldn't be talking about this situation now. I suggest it is that the whole reason behind it is to fund or to help the coffers of Devon County and balance the budget. So let's just look at the real reasons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
I just want to say, Mr Mayor, that to move the debate on, we've had a lot of contribution to it. So that we do move it on, I'd like to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a seconder for that? Yes. Okay, any further contributions? Deputy Mayor.
Though I agree with the recommendations, I still think it might be sensible to actually put a motion in, just a very simple motion, basically of saying we don't like the idea of parking meters and we want more information. I'm happy to propose a motion if people want so.
I need to take advice. How do we handle this? We've got two motions by the sound of it.
We've got two motions, but what you could do is you could actually take Councillor Hutton's, if it's agreeable with Councillor Smith, as a statement of objection, and then taking the points which are in the report, then ask that that information be provided in order that we can further consider it. So that would be all that Councillor Smith has, but it would have the statement of objection incorporated with it if agreeable to the proposal.
Okay. Through the town clerk, can I ask you to just make that view known to the membership, please?
If it's agreeable to the proposers and seconders of both the motions, rather than going through the whole kind of amendments process, Councillor Smith has proposed the recommendations which are in the report, which are effectively seeking additional information and detail, and that was something which Councillor Hutton referred to. If agreeable to Councillor Smith as the original proposer, we retain that, but then we add in a statement, a preamble to that, expressing this council's substantial concern at the emerging proposal and its objection on the basis of the information currently available, and then seeking further information in order that we can consider the matter further. If that's agreeable, we can go that route, but if not, then we'll just go down the normal route of motion and amendments.
I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. And the Deputy Mayor also agrees with that. So that is, yeah, Councillor Mrs Ewings.
Within what the correspondence the town clerk is going to have on our behalf with Devon County, I think we need to ask specifically which bus services. I think we should be asking as a council for ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have to say, very often I find it very difficult to make my own contributions when I'm sitting in this chair, and I know others who have sat in this chair may feel the same. But there are a couple of things that I'd just like to air with you. I've seen the impact assessments prepared for Devon County Council which talk about the rationale behind considering the introduction of charges, and they're all based on traffic movement. They're all based on, is it the Traffic Act 1984, Road Traffic Act 1984, Section 27, whichever one it is. And it all relates to the flow of traffic. Now, I don't see any way what we believe to be proposed, because we don't know yet what is being proposed in detail, it will make no difference whatsoever, because it talks in terms of 1 hour periods, 30 minutes free, 30 minutes charged. Well, we already have 1 hour time blocks in the town as it is, so I don't see it making any substantial difference. But I don't know whether there's anyone in the room who can help me with this. Is there any legal validity in introducing parking charges to subsidise bus services? There clearly is validity for traffic purposes from the section for the 1984 Act, but does it apply? Is there some validity for subsidising the buses?
Technically speaking, all income which principal authorities receive from car parking charges is required in some way, shape or form to be reinvested back into transport infrastructure. So, let's just use Exeter as for example. Devon County Council is the highway authority. It charges for car parking in Exeter on street parking. If it makes a surplus there, it has to reinvest that in the highway infrastructure. Now that might be through support for bus services, it might be through road improvements, it might be through new road schemes and whatever else. So the money that principal authorities make from car parking charges, I can't remember the Act, is intended to be fed back into that. So inevitably you will have areas where you have a surplus, you will have areas where you have a deficit, and it's a matter for each principal authority to work out how it redistributes that in order that it supports that. That doesn't mean to say that the only money which can be invested in highway infrastructure comes from car parking charges. It's clearly a matter for the principal authority from other fees and charges, from other income that it receives, from grants, from the council tax, as to how it then hypothecates that towards supporting both the transport network and the infrastructure that goes with it. So those are the political choices that a council makes, but they're political choices within the framework of certain requirements around what it can do with car parking charges.
Thank you. And another thought that was going through my mind is that if there is a problem funding the support of the bus services, it's a surprise to me that the Devon County Council didn't seek Section 106 money towards the buses when the Plymouth Road development was being considered. Councillor Sellers.
Yeah, thanks, because I asked that, and apparently all the development, because there is the bus route already established, they couldn't do it on another development, and I did query that as well. And I think that that's a very reasonable question to ask, and I have asked that actually. Have we really sweated the Section 106 potential? That is another question that I did ask.
Thank you.
Because I agree with you.
Councillor, I think we need to bring this item to a close shortly. But Councillor Mrs Mann, you're happy to pass? Okay. Members, it's pretty clear that the mood around the table is minded, choose my words carefully, to oppose any proposition to introduce on-street car parking charges. If I could just refer you to paragraph 1.7 in the clerk's briefing note. If the Council shares those concerns, it may wish to consider supporting contributing to that initiative being the initiative of the bid. And does this Council wish to make a contribution, be it financial or otherwise, to the campaign that is currently in progress? Yes?
Yeah.
All in favour? Okay, in which case, would it be acceptable to you if the clerk, in consultation with myself and the Deputy Mayor, were to determine a quantum contribution? Thank you very much. Go on.
Would it be best to discuss with the bid manager as well as to what they estimate the costs are going to be? Because you three could just put your fingers in and, you know, just find out. So would it be best to see what they are seeking to do and how much that is going to cost, and we then put in a contribution towards those costs? I don't know how much the money pot is at the moment.
For members' information, we are anticipating a meeting in the near future between representatives of the bid, the Borough Council and the Town Council, where we can explore those sorts of issues.
Yeah, thank you.
So, we have a proposal to for a modified version of the proposal in this paper, which is acceptable to both Councillor Smith and to the Deputy Mayor. So the motion has been proposed. Is it seconded?
We haven't said what the motion is yet, have we?
Well, could we make that clear again? Have you got some words for us?
It was something like, but I may have to refer to my colleague Mr Smallacombe's notes. The first part of it is that the Council raises a substantial or significant objection to the emerging proposals on the basis of the information which has been provided at this time. That's the objection in principle. It then goes on, in order to help it further consider this matter, to seek the information which is set out in the report. There is then an additional component which was referenced, which was actually asking about which bus services were going to be affected, which isn't actually in the report. And then the further component which has just been added, which is that authority be delegated to the clerk in consultation with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to agree an appropriate contribution in consultation with the bid company towards the campaign which is currently being undertaken.
All right, all got that?
Are we not specifically mentioning that we don't like the idea of car parking?
It was in the first. Well,
It is in.
Yeah.
It is actually mentioned.
I think we need to be more general than meters, because I don't think it'll be meters. If it's anything, it'll be some other technology is likely to be used, which may or may not bring its own problems. So, all in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you, members. Okay, so we move on now to items circulated for information only. Oh, 8B. Oh, my goodness, yes. I'm sorry. I'm obviously feeling hungry. Right, okay. Apologies, Councillor Squire. So, 8B, motion. Councillor Squire has submitted a motion that he wishes council to consider. Councillor Squire, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion is, as before you, has been reworded subject to the advice of senior officers of this council. I've carefully gone through it since then, and I have understood that another council may wish to make an amendment to the motion, and I am quite prepared to sit at this point and let that amendment come forward before I continue. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Johnson.
Thank you. It's just a correction of the technical details. Councillor Squire's motion, last paragraph says, does council ask the leader and managing director of Dartmoor National Park? If he's referring to Dr Kevin Bishop, he is the chief executive, brackets, National Park Officer. So I'd like to amend it in so it's technically correct, please.
Thank you. I think for the benefit of anyone who may be watching this on live streaming, we should read out the motion. Tavistock Town Council joins with the thousands of Devon residents shocked and appalled by the effective ban on wild camping on Dartmoor arising from a recent court decision. This council supports Dartmoor National Park in its rightful and spirited defence of wild camping, a right enjoyed by generations of local people and visitors. This council condemns the loss of this right and calls on government to enact urgent legislation to reinstate wild camping and protect the rights of people to fully enjoy Dartmoor. This council asks the Chief Executive, brackets, National Park Officer, is that the right word? No, because it's the wrong title. So they ask the Chief Executive, brackets, National Park Leader? Officer. To write in the strongest terms to the Members of Parliament for the Tavistock Town area and the relevant Secretaries of State and the Prime Minister, urging them to act to restore the right to wild camp on Dartmoor. So that is the motion that's been proposed and is before us. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And does anybody wish to say anything on this item? Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. Am I right in thinking the third paragraph is still as it is on this paper? Because my understanding I followed it somewhat closely. My understanding of the legal argument was that Dartmoor National Park was saying that the current legislation as it stands gives people the legal right to wild camp. But we're now saying that the government should introduce new legislation to allow it. But the Dartmoor National Park Authority itself is saying that the legislation is fine as it is, and it gives people the right to do so. So I just think it's almost undermining what they're saying itself. If they're saying that it's fine as it is, and then we're saying you should get government to write new legislation on it. That's my understanding of the legal argument from it, and it's all about the construction of the words and how it's interpreted. So it just seems that that paragraph undermines what's been said, but I mean I could be wrong on the legal argument part of it.
Councillor Squire and then Councillor Mrs Mann.
Councillor Pearce is digging now into the detail, and he's quite right to do so. There is an element of what's known as permissive allowance has arisen, and by the very word permissive, it means permission can be withdrawn on an ad hoc basis. It's that which I am concerned about, to continue with wild camping as a statutory right rather than a permission from a landowner. So that's where I stand, and it is a complex area, but it is something which I think everybody who lived and was brought up in this area has been used to as being part and parcel of their own heritage as youth and as people who have access to public space. So yes, the permissiveness of landowners is something that probably irritates me as an ex-farmer, so I may be rising to that. Thank you.
Well, I fully agree with the sentiment of it in the first two paragraphs. It was just a matter of is that legally right, effectively? That was all my concern was for it.
Councillor Mrs Mann.
I was just going to say we could just include language saying to overturn the decision or enact legislation that does so, so that you've got both of those covered to address Councillor Pear's concern, so that you're not undermining their argument that you don't need new legislation, which and that way you've covered that base.
You've got liars on liars now.
Councillor Barry Smith.
I'm just pointing out that the court case that came through, which was Darwall, who is a landowner, he has given permission to the Dartmoor National Park for people to wild camp on his land. What he's saying is that he took it to court, as I understand it, because people could just walk onto his land like you could walk onto his front garden and camp there. And it's just they want the permission to actually control what is happening on their land. And I think the majority, because there is a map which has been produced by Dartmoor National Park, which, without checking everything, seems to be exactly the same or very similar to what it was before, the areas that you could do it. They've taken some out. They've taken a lot out, Anne? Pardon? Yeah.
Sorry if I can. As many of you know, I'm involved, been 25 years involved with the training of 10 tools teams. We have had to change our camping. We don't camp to the last couple of weekends of training. We've had to change them because we can't camp. I think it's north of Post Bridge and in the area around Four Winds.
Yeah.
So there have been quite a few areas that have been taken out. The permissive camping is not as much as it ever was.
No. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just a suggestion that we take Occam's razor to this and modify that paragraph to say something like, this council condemns the loss of this right and calls on government to reinstate wild camping and protect the rights of people to fully enjoy Dartmoor, and just miss all the other words out.
Sounds good.
I'm very happy with that.
Okay. Are the lawyers in the room happy? Okay, so with that modification, do we still have a proposer and a seconder? I assume we do, yes. In which case, all in favour, please show.
Carried.
Good, thank you. Right. For information only. 9, service reports. Roman 1, General Manager's report. The General Manager gives his apologies. He's not able to be with us this evening. I'm sure other officers will field any questions or comments you wish to make. Roman 2, Paddy Market report. Roman 3, Works Department report. Councillor Mrs Mann.
I just wanted to say that thank you to the Pannier Market. What's his title? Reeve. Sorry, I couldn't remember that word. For helping with the steering group. He's already produced a report for us, which has been really helpful. We're looking at it as a community resource as well, and for the business group. We also were going to attend that, and I can see how busy he is, so I just wanted to say that obviously thank you, pass on our thanks.
Okay, thank you. I mentioned 3, Works Department. Councillor Mrs Ewings.
I don't know whether I'm being a bit preemptive here, but I would like to thank the General Manager for a conversation I had with him last week about getting the goalposts back up on Middlemore, and I've been assured they'll be back up at the end of February. We did offer to help with payment, a couple of us, but apparently it's all been sorted, which is excellent news. It's a great play area for young people to be able to have a kick about. It's great for people's mental health up there. I think we just need to ask the people who go driving, golf driving up there, that I think it shouldn't be in that area. It shouldn't be allowed because there's children up there, dogs up there. You know, I'm sure somebody must have had a golf ball on the head. But it can't, because people who just open up their car boot and start swinging the golf balls are not the most considerate, neither are they the most polite when you ask them to stop. But fantastic news that those goalposts are going back up there. And I did learn last week, not from the general manager, that it used to have a very old name, like Westerly or Westerline, because this chap was telling me about that was the football club's name. West what?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I think it was called Westcon.
Yeah,
There was definitely a football. I've played football on that pitch. There's a proper match, and I used to support the Whitchurch Football Club when it used to play there as well.
So, great news.
Okay, thank you. Roman 4, Town Hall and Butchers Hall report. Councillor Mrs Crawford.
Thank you. Just whilst we've got our Devon County Councillor in the room, I just wanted to ask, can Bannerwell Play Park please be looked at as a matter of urgency, because there is Section 106 money, I understand, outstanding, that needs to go in there to provide the play equipment, and the state of that park actually has just been appalling over this winter.
Councillor Crawford, can I ask that we bring this to the County Councillor when we get to the County Councillor's report, which will only be in a minute or two, if that's acceptable to you. Okay, thank you. So, moving on to 10, Councillor Mrs Mann.
I just wanted to say thank you as well to the Town Hall and Butchers Hall manager, who has also been working with the steering group and providing information, and is actually helping us with this event that we're having on the 22nd, and has been extremely helpful.
Good, that's good to hear. Right, 10, Finance and Other Matters. Receive for information. Report of the Assistant to the Town Clerk. Any comments or questions? Is there anything you wanted to add? No? Okay. 10B, Notes of the Whitchurch Down Consultative Group Meeting. 10C, Devon County Councillor Update. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Sellis, for your update. Are you happy to take questions and comments? Yep. So, members, if you wish to ask the County Councillor any questions subsequent to her report, please. This is your opportunity. Councillor Mrs Crawford.
Thank you, Councillor Sellis. If you could, as a matter of urgency, look at Bannerwell Play Park. Sorry. Could you, as a matter of urgency, please look into Bannerwell Play Park and the work that needs to be done in the flooded area there to sort out that flooding, because play equipment is dependent on Section 106 money being spent at the correct time.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am aware of this, and the town clerk, Mr Hearn, and officers are discussing things, and I've supported the Town Council in trying to get the information, and to be perfectly blunt, that is all I can do at the moment, isn't it? And it is in officers' hands, but I fully understand why everybody's concerned about it. I know that sounds a bit shallow, but...
No, thank you. I think the Town Clerk will brief us on the most recent information. Town Clerk.
Yeah, I can confirm that an officer meeting took place earlier on today, and there was an inspection by an engineer from Devon County Council. We're hoping for a report shortly in relation to the outcomes of that, but I think it's fair to say that we are anticipating that it will identify some deficiencies in scheme design and installation which may well need to be redressed. But thank you very much to County Councillor Sellis for facilitating the conversations, because we did have a while where it was a little bit difficult, I think, to get through to the right people in order to be able to undertake that work. So we are hopeful that this will lead to the facility, if you like, for a more collaborative approach.
Councillor Mrs Ewings.
I'm delighted to hear that bit of news, Mr Town Clerk, having had a conversation with you last week at length about this issue. This has been going on for a long time and has been extremely frustrating to the children who would like to play there, to people to walk their dogs, and to our staff as a whole who are having to clear the area because it has been absolutely covered in mud and everything, and we have had to ask our Works Depot staff to go and clear the pathways going down towards the area. That actually is wrong, and left to me, I'd be sending a bill to DCC because this is their responsibility. We have, I think it's £46,000 allocated for this area for play equipment. That funding goes out of date this September. If this money is not spent because of any more dithering by Devon County Council, then we have lost it. And as the County Councillor is fully aware that you have to pay that money back to the developer plus loss of interest, which, you know, we cannot afford to do. And is that fair to the residents of Tavistock North and the residents of the estate just up the road, which is where the funding comes from, to be able to support this play area? I believe the General Manager has looked at some equipment and got an idea of what they would like to put out and up there, but who knows when it can be done, you know, or do we just buy the equipment and put it on side and, you know, get it fitted afterwards? But this issue has been very long term. This is not, oh, it flooded last week because there was a lot of rain. It's still even flooded when it hasn't rained for a week. Now that is just not on. It is a culvert that does not belong to this council, and we allocated or allowed Devon County in previous developments when they needed to put a culvert there. So actually Tavistock Town Council helped Devon County sort out a drainage issue for further up the hill, and actually we're the ones who are left with parts of our park area that we can't access through funding. So, you know, I really hope, and that Councillor Sellis is listening, and that she can really kick the proverbials to get this report back to the Town Council so that we can look at it, and if it is a failure on Devon County's design brief and everything else, that they get on and with the work, I can't think of the word I want to use, remediate the works, because it desperately needs doing, and they just need to put their hands up and take responsibility.
Thank you. Any more for any more? Yes, Councillor Venning.
Now, I wrote to the to Devon County Council last Friday in reference to the cutting down of the trees going down towards Longburn Down on the right-hand side. Several people I know from Gunners Lake, and from when I was a child, there's always been an avenue of trees going up through there. Now, the farmers cut the whole lot down, all the mature trees and everything, but we don't know whether it's part of the Tavistock Council or whether it's part of the other side of it. So, do you know, have you got any report back on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you very much. I haven't had an answer yet. The neighbourhood officer is on leave at the moment, and so I couldn't answer, and I'm sorry, I did try to find out for you, and I will let you know as soon as I can. It might just be maintenance, I don't know, but it does look a rather savage cut, doesn't it?
Okay.
I mean, I understand the maintenance of cutting the small bushes down, but they cut all the mature trees down and everything. You know, when I was a young child, there's always been an avenue up in there. and he's devastated the whole lot of it, took it all off. Is it for planning permission for something else or what?
I don't...
Well, you don't know, just saying you don't know. But this is all-
Assistant to the Town Clerk, please.
I was tasked with finding out from Galwithy Parish Council if they were aware of the works and had been consulted. I have emailed some of you that were copied in on the email. They were not aware of the works either. Their presumption is that there was a problem with the trees, as in they were going to cause a danger, and apparently they're very large trees, and the concern was if it was an issue with the health of the trees, it would obviously have been a major risk on such a busy road. But they were not consulted in any way.
I can understand that to a certain extent, taking a few trees down, but they devastate the whole edge. We're talking going to have more than 3 to all in through there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Venning. I think we all regret losing mature trees like that, but at the moment we're not in a position to make a judgment on the validity of the action. Councillor Mrs Mann.
Sorry, I was just going to ask that, whether we could have some research done as to whether there's a way we can request information about the legitimacy of the trees that are mature there being cut down.
Could I just ask the clerk about whose patch that falls into?
I would think it's Galwithy. I mean, I think the other thing to bear in mind is that unless the trees had a designation on them, provided that the contractor or the landowner had the requisite felling order, there wouldn't actually be a requirement for notification or consultation in relation to their removal. And if they had been identified as potentially a highway safety hazard, then they could have been removed under those with or without the felling order, I would have anticipated, because that would cover emergency situations. So it would be very much a matter for the landowner unless there was a designation, provided the licence was in place.
Councillor Mrs Ewings.
Just as a point of information, when they first started felling those trees, Councillor Venning, they started on the Callington Road going up from Crease Lane, and I had a letter at home notifying me that the Crease Lane would be closed for I think it was a week because of felling works. So there was a little bit of consultation, but maybe not with the right organisations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you with that. They've threaded all that out, but they've been doing that for years. For years they've been trimming that lot back along that part we were talking about. But the other part, well, I can't see no excuse for it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for our County Councillor, please? No? Okay, thank you very much. So 10D, West Devon Borough Council update. We've had a written report from Councillor Turnbull, who's not with us this evening. Does anyone have any comments to make, please? Councillor Mrs Mann.
I just wanted to say that we are aware of the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. The neighbourhood steering group topic lead has brought that to our attention, and therefore we're leaving any consultation around that matter to either the Devon County Council or West Devon Borough Council, but we do intend to keep an eye on it and incorporate whatever outcomes there are for Tavistock, which is mentioned in there.
Okay, thank you. And then 10E, updates from questions to council representatives serving on outside bodies and feedback from members following any training sessions. Does anyone have anything to report or any questions to ask? Councillor Harry Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm the council's representative on the trustees of the museum and recently attending a meeting with theirs. And there were two things that I need to report from that meeting. The first is that the trust is they had a real expression of thanks for the grant which the council has agreed and will be presented to them next month. The fact that that money will be used to buy some cabinets and display stuff. But what the when the items are actually purchased with that funding, it will allow an expansion of the kind of items which can be securely exhibited in various locations around the town, due to the fact that we will have the museum closed for a considerable amount of time going forward. I think they have had some small displays within the library, but it was there was very little security, so they were limited in what items they could use. But the money we've provided is for secure cabinets. The second is that members should note that the trust will be seeking re-accreditation at the end of this year. And to that end, they're working with Andrew Thompson, who some of us will know. Andrew has joined that organisation as an accreditation mentor to get them through the accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? I have nothing to report under item 11 or under item 12, which brings us to...
Move to part 2, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs Ewings.
Sorry, I have to remind.
Thank you, Debo.
Thank you.